This is HuffPost Live. I'm Ricky Camilleri. Over the weekend, men's rights groups, A Voice for Men, hosted the first national conference on men's issues in Detroit, where they discussed the downsides of feminism and the problems that stem from the so-called myths of male power. So if these are the purposes of the men's rights movement, what effect, if any, do they have on women's rights movements? Well, joining me is author Arthur Goldwag, who attended the conference. Arthur, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So first off, we should just say that you are not a member of a men's rights group. You attended purely for journalistic purposes.
Yeah.
So what did you see while you were there?
Well, I've been a critic of men's rights for a couple years. It happened accidentally because I wrote an article for the Southern Poverty Law Center about not specifically men's rights, but the manosphere. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote a couple follow-up articles, but really not a great deal. But when the convention was scheduled, the Southern Poverty Law Center, who I'm not an employee of, I've contributed to them, they asked me if I would like to go. And it wasn't like an incredibly attractive idea for me as a way to spend a weekend, but I thought, you know, I should go. I should go into the belly of the beast, as it were, and see what it's like, and listen.
Yeah.
See, you know, they're trying to give their best face to the world, see what's there.
So what is their best face? What do they stand for?
Well, a couple things happened that changed things for them. One, they originally scheduled the conference for the Hilton in downtown Detroit. Mm-hmm. There were protests. They were forced to move it to a VFW hall in the suburbs. I
want to be clear, though, because I don't think our audience right now is getting what exactly people would be protesting.
I haven't told you who they are.
Okay, yes, thank you.
They call themselves the Men's Human Rights Movement. Mm-hmm. And the they that I'm talking about, it's a website called A Voice for Men that's run by a man named Paul Elam, which is male spelled backwards, but it is his real name, apparently. And A Voice for Men is they believe that the problems that men are facing, and the problems that men are facing as fathers, the lower levels of boys in schools, what they see as phenomenally high levels of false rape accusations, that men have become a minority, a persecuted minority. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is because feminism has become the dominant ideology of the West.
Well, in the sense, in the push for equality for women, and the push for equality among other minorities in the country, they feel like they have become the most persecuted minority, and that the only way to achieve equality is to persecute them as the minority?
Well, what they say is that feminism, there was some discussion of history there, and there were some disagreements among them. There's some people like Warren Farrell, who was their really big deal speaker. He's a famous author. He was on the board of Now's New York chapter in the 70s, and he eventually left. Angrily, he felt that they that they became anti-father. Mm-hmm. But what they say is that feminism underwent a change, that it began as an equality movement, and then it became a superiority movement, and in fact succeeded. That through its infiltration and takeover of the government and social welfare institutions, and especially the family courts, it's crushed men and boys.
So these men feel crushed. What type? Crushed. Now, what type of men are we talking about at these conferences? Do you see around you?
This was my first conference.
It is the first conference.
It was the first conference that A Voice for Men held.
Yes.
And A Voice for Men, I should say, the manosphere, the male interest or masculinist blogs and chat rooms and so on. It's much bigger than a Voice for Men. A Voice for Men is very political. It has a particular philosophy. It's very much, Paul Elam, who started the blog, started it as a blog, and it's really a big website now, and they have...
Is it mostly white men at the conference?
No, there were quite a few black people there. But again, we're talking about a small sample of people.
Right.
I mean, there were like maybe 150 people.
When it comes to these groups, though, and you write about them for the Southern Poverty Law Center, which I think so many people in there, when they think of the SPLC, they think of neo-Nazi groups, they think of white supremacy groups. In any way, is this group, A Voice for Men, in any way related or could be related or parallel to these kinds of movements?
I don't think it is. And this may startle some of the men's rights people that feel that I've demonized them. What I wrote about and what I've talked about is a tone and a message of misogyny that permeates some of this. As far as the issues that they have, a lot of the issues I think are legitimate issues. They're talking about half the world. And there's a lot of suffering and a lot of misery in the world. And men, bear the brunt of a lot of things. It's their totalizing anti-feminist frame that I take issue with. But even that wouldn't make them a hate group.
Right.
But it's the hatred Elam had this, he had this featured site that he said began as a satire, where he posted pictures of women that he deemed enemies of men, misandrist villains. They were women
which in many ways pretty similar to someone like Craig Cobb posting the address of a judge that disagrees with his supremacy group. So there is a level of not necessarily, I mean, that seems to say, like I'm implying that he's saying strike violence on these people, but he is not saying that. He is just saying these are people that we hate.
Well, one of the things that the followers of the group do is they go after these people. They spam them mercilessly. They send them hate messages. They scare the crap out of them. And that, to me, was a hateful, scary thing that skirted the edges of legality. And
the digital version of throwing a brick through.
Yeah, I mean, it was frightening. He doesn't have that up anymore.
Right.
So I think maybe partly in anticipation of having this conference and being covered by the media, he's clearly trying to raise his. He's trying to raise his profile. He's also trying to raise the tone a little bit.
Right, respectability a little bit for A Voice for Men.
Yeah, and I didn't attend as a member of the media. I bought a ticket, and I got an email at one point saying, the eyes of the world are going to be upon us. Our enemies are going to be there. No one is to trash talk women. No one is to even joke about violence. And that tempered the tone of a lot of the discussion.
Yeah, we have to wrap up here, but I will just say one thing. If you have to tell your army, if you have to tell your minions that because media is going to be there, you can't be up to your regular behavior, then your regular behavior and your ethos is essentially hateful.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, Arthur, thanks so much for being here. If you want to read Arthur's blog post that he put up for Huffington Post, it is in our resource right now, and you can check it out. Just click on the link, get there, and read it. And stick around. We got a lot more coming up on HuffPost Live.